Have you ever come home after a long, exhausting day, only to find a stranger's car sitting inside your garage like they own the place? Well, that's exactly what happened to me. But this wasn't just any stranger. It was the HOA president. And she didn't just park there by mistake. She told me my garage was now community parking. So I did the only logical thing I could think of. I locked the garage door, turned off my phone, and disappeared for 5 entire days. What happened next? Let's just say the HOA never tried anything like that again. Before we get into the story, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. If you enjoy dramatic HOA stories, crazy neighborhood conflicts, and satisfying karma, you're in the right place. Now, let's get into what happened. I bought my house 3 years ago. It wasn't a mansion. It wasn't a luxury estate, but it was mine. A small single-story house tucked into a quiet suburban neighborhood. A little garden in the front, a narrow driveway, and a single attached garage. The garage was actually one of the reasons I chose the place. I'm a car guy, not the rich collector kind. Just someone who enjoys fixing things, restoring older vehicles, and keeping them running. Inside that garage sat my pride and joy. A 1998 Mustang GT I'd spent almost 2 years restoring piece by piece. Every weekend I'd be out there polishing, fixing, tuning something. To me, that garage wasn't just parking space. It was my workshop, my escape. Unfortunately, there was one problem with the neighborhood, the HOA. Now, if you've never dealt with a homeowners association before, consider yourself lucky. At first, things seem normal. Pay a small monthly fee. Follow some simple rules. Don't paint your house neon green. Keep your lawn trimmed. Basic stuff. But after about 6 months, I started noticing something. The HOA president, Karen Whitmore. And yes, she was exactly the kind of Karen you're imagining. Short blonde haircut, oversized sunglasses, clipboard always in hand like she was running a military operation. Karen had an unusual hobby, patrolling the neighborhood. Every morning around 9 a.m., she'd slowly drive her white SUV down every street like a security guard. If someone's trash can was out too long, if someone's grass looked a little uneven, if a car was parked half an inch outside a driveway line, Karen noticed, and Karen wrote letters. Lots of letters. People joked about it in the neighborhood group chat, but nobody really challenged her. Until one Thursday evening. That's when everything started. It had been a brutal day at work. I'm an electrician, and that day I'd been crawling through a hot attic installing wiring for nearly 8 hours. All I wanted was a shower and maybe a cold drink. I pulled into my driveway around 6:30 p.m., and immediately something felt wrong. My garage door was closed. That wasn't unusual, but the driveway looked different because there was a car sitting inside my garage. You know that moment when your brain refuses to process what your eyes are seeing? That was me. Through the small windows of the garage door, I could clearly see it, a silver Lexus, parked exactly where my Mustang should have been. For a few seconds, I just sat in my truck, staring. Then I got out and walked up to the garage door. I pressed the opener. The door slowly rolled up, and there it was, a brand new Lexus SUV, parked neatly inside my garage. My Mustang was shoved halfway into the driveway. Someone had actually moved my car. That's when the anger started creeping in. Who the hell would do that? I walked around the Lexus looking for some kind of explanation. Maybe a note. Nothing. Just shiny paint and tinted windows. Then I heard a voice behind me. Oh, good, you're home. I turned around, and there she was, Karen Whitmore, standing on the sidewalk with her arms crossed like she was inspecting a construction project. Karen, why is there a car in my garage? I asked slowly. She adjusted her sunglasses. That's my vehicle. I blinked. Your vehicle? Yes, she said casually. I had to move yours slightly to fit. For a moment, I thought she was joking. You moved my car. What was blocking the space? The space? I repeated. She nodded like she was explaining something obvious to a child. Yes, the garage space. I stared at her. Karen, that's my garage. And that's when she said something that still makes my brain hurt. Well, technically, she said, the HOA owns the structures collectively. I laughed, not because it was funny, because it was insane. No, Karen, I own this house. I own this garage. She waved her clipboard dismissively. The HOA bylaws allow shared usage of underutilized spaces. Underutilized? Yes, she said. Then she pointed inside. You only keep one car there. I felt my jaw tighten. That's how garages work. Well, she continued, we have a parking shortage in the neighborhood, so I've assigned myself temporary use of your garage. Temporary, like she'd borrowed a lawn chair. I took a deep breath. Karen, move your car. She smiled. I'll move it tomorrow morning. No, move it now. She checked her watch dramatically. I'm afraid I'm heading to a dinner meeting. Then she started walking away. Karen. She turned. Yes. If that car isn't gone in 10 minutes, I'm calling a tow truck. Her smile disappeared. You wouldn't dare. I didn't respond. I just pulled out my phone. That's when she walked back toward me quickly. Now hold on, she snapped. I lowered the phone slightly. What? She pointed a finger at me. You will not tow my car. And why not? Because, she said confidently, the HOA board approved this. I folded my arms. Great. Then the HOA board can pay the towing fee. Her face turned bright red. You're being extremely difficult. No, I said calmly. You parked in my garage. For a few seconds, we just stared at each other. Finally, she sighed. Fine. I'll move it tomorrow. Then she walked away again. And that's when I had an idea. A very simple idea. I slowly closed the garage door. The Lexus was still inside. Then I locked the side door. And the main garage door. Then I went inside my house. 5 minutes later, my phone rang. Karen. I ignored it. Then it rang again. And again. Then a text message appeared. Open the garage. I forgot something in my car. I smiled. Because at that exact moment, I was booking a 5-day fishing trip with my brother, 2 states away. And Karen's Lexus was about to spend the entire week locked inside my garage. If you want to know what happened when Karen realized her car was trapped for 5 days, make sure you're subscribed. Because trust me, the HOA was about to lose their minds. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. Not because I had work, but because I had a fishing trip to get ready for. My brother Jake had been begging me for months to join him on a 5-day trip to a lake about 8 hours away. I always told him I was too busy. But after what happened with Karen the night before, suddenly I had plenty of motivation to take a break. While I packed my bags in the kitchen, my phone kept buzzing on the table. Buzz, buzz, buzz. I didn't even have to look to know who it was. Karen. Finally, curiosity got the better of me. I picked up the phone. 17 missed calls. 9 text messages. The latest one read, "Open the garage right now." I couldn't help but laugh. I walked outside with my coffee and looked toward the garage. The door was still closed. Behind that metal door sat Karen's shiny silver Lexus, trapped like a very expensive hamster in a very inconvenient cage. Just then my phone rang again. Karen. I answered this time. The moment I said hello, she exploded. What is wrong with you? I calmly took a sip of coffee. Good morning, Karen. This is not funny. What's not funny? My car, she shouted. Oh, right. The car you parked in my garage. There was a long pause. You locked it? Yes. You locked my car inside. Yes. Her breathing got louder on the phone. You need to open that garage immediately. I leaned against the fence. Unfortunately, I can't. And why not? Because I'm leaving town. Silence. Then she laughed like I had just told the dumbest joke ever. Very funny. Now open the door. I'm serious. You're not going anywhere until my car is out. Well, I said calmly, that sounds like a you problem. Her voice dropped into that cold HOA president tone. You're violating HOA cooperation policies. Karen, you parked in my garage. You should have informed me before locking it. I did, I said. I told you to move your car. You said tomorrow. Exactly. Another pause. You can't just trap someone's vehicle. You can't just park in someone's garage. That seemed to short-circuit her brain. Finally, she snapped, I'm calling the HOA board. Great, I said. Tell them I said hi. Then I hung up. 10 minutes later, I loaded my bags into my truck. I gave the garage one last look. Inside that garage sat the Lexus, Karen's pride and joy. And for the next 5 days, it wasn't going anywhere. I locked the house, started my truck, and pulled out of the driveway. As I turned the corner, I saw Karen standing outside her house with her phone pressed to her ear. The moment she saw my truck leaving, her eyes went wide. She started waving her arms wildly. I just gave her a friendly wave back. Then I drove away. About 2 hours into the trip, my phone started blowing up again. This time it wasn't just Karen. It was the HOA board. Apparently Karen had already told everyone that I had illegally seized her vehicle. One message read, please contact the HOA immediately to resolve the situation. Another said, you may face fines if the vehicle is not released. I forwarded both messages to Jake. His response came instantly. Wait, you locked the HOA president's car in your garage. Yep. Bro, this is the funniest thing you've ever done. By the time I reached the lake, the neighborhood group chat had turned into absolute chaos. One neighbor wrote, did Karen really park in someone's garage? Another replied, apparently yes. Someone else added, honestly, she deserves it. Then a message popped up from Karen herself, and you could practically hear the rage through the screen. This is unacceptable behavior. The board will be taking action. Jake looked over at my phone and started laughing. She seems nice. Oh, you have no idea. For the next few hours, we focus on setting up the fishing gear and unloading the truck. Out there by the lake, with trees and water everywhere, the whole situation almost felt unreal. But then my phone rang again. Unknown number. I answered. Hello. A man cleared his throat. Hi, this is Robert from the HOA board. Ah, the reinforcements had arrived. Yes. Karen explained the situation. I'm sure she did. Well, she says you locked her vehicle in your garage. That's correct. Could you open the garage so she can retrieve it? I would love to, I said, but I'm 8 hours away. Silence. You left town? Yes. For how long? 5 days. Another long pause. You're telling me the car is stuck there for 5 days? Unless Karen learns how to teleport, yes. He sighed. Look, maybe we can find a compromise. I already offered one. I said, what's that? She moves her car out of my garage. Well, she can't do that if it's locked. Exactly. Jake nearly choked trying not to laugh. Robert sounded exhausted. I'll talk to the board. Good luck. Then I hung up. That evening we sat on the dock, watching the sunset. The lake was calm. The air smelled like pine trees. And my phone buzzed again. Another message from the neighborhood chat. Someone had posted a picture. It showed Karen standing in front of my garage with 2 other HOA board members. All 3 were staring at the closed door, like it was a safe they couldn't crack. The caption read, Day 1, the Lexus remains in prison. Jake burst out laughing. So hard, he nearly fell into the water. Your neighborhood is savage. I shook my head, but deep down, I knew something important. Karen wasn't the kind of person who gave up easily, and if she was already this angry on day 1, the next 4 days were going to get very interesting. If you want, I can also continue with chapter 3, where Karen tries to break into the garage. The HOA sends legal threats. Neighbors start picking sides, and the situation turns into a full neighborhood war. Just tell me, and I'll continue the story. By the second day of my fishing trip, the situation back home had escalated beyond anything I expected. Karen had apparently called every HOA board member, the local towing company, and even the neighborhood watch, claiming that I had illegally imprisoned her Lexus in my garage. I could practically see her frantic texts piling up in my mind, all demanding that I return immediately. Meanwhile, the neighborhood chat had exploded. Half the community was cheering me on, posting memes about Karen and her imprisoned car. while the other half was worried about fines or legal action. Photos started circulating online. Karen standing outside my garage with her hands on her hips, glaring at the locked door like it was a villain in a horror movie. One of the HOA board members even attempted to negotiate over phone, suggesting that maybe I could remotely unlock the garage for just a few hours so she could retrieve her car. I stayed calm. I reminded them, politely but firmly, that I was 8 hours away and that the only solution was for Karen to respect property boundaries. By late afternoon, I received another update. Karen had tried everything short of breaking the garage door. She had attempted to call a locksmith, sent multiple neighbors over to convince me to open it, and even threatened to sue for harassment and unlawful confinement of a vehicle. The audacity of it made me chuckle. From what I could gather from the chat, she had practically camped outside my garage, pacing and yelling at anyone who passed by. Neighbors had started recording videos of her yelling, which quickly went viral in the community group. Some people even joined in, leaving humorous notes on her car to the mail slot, like, "Sorry, Karen, the Mustang was here first," and "Welcome to garage prison." Meanwhile, I was on the lake, fishing pole in hand, enjoying the peace, completely detached from her chaos. Every time my phone buzzed with another message or notification from the neighborhood, I felt a small thrill. Karen's rage was growing exponentially while I stayed miles away, sipping coffee and laughing with my brother. By the evening of day 2, the board seemed desperate. I got a call from Robert again, pleading that I at least communicate with Karen. I kept my response simple. She parked in my garage. The car stays there until I return. I could hear him sighing heavily on the other end. That night, as the sun set over the lake, I realized the situation had turned into something much bigger than a single HOA dispute. It was now a full-blown neighborhood spectacle, with Karen at the center of her own drama and me quietly watching the chaos unfold from afar. And deep down, I knew that the next 3 days were going to push this battle to an entirely new level of ridiculousness. By the third day, Karen's frustration had reached a fever pitch. I started getting texts from neighbors describing the scene outside my house. Karen pacing back and forth in high heels, shouting into her phone like the entire HOA board could hear her fury over the line. She had apparently tried everything short of breaking the garage door, including calling multiple locksmiths, threatening legal action, and even leaving passive-aggressive notes on my front door. One neighbor joked that she had brought binoculars to monitor the car's movements, although, of course, there were none, except maybe her imagination. Meanwhile, the Lexus sat motionless in my garage, polished to a mirror shine, completely immobile, a symbol of Karen's failed attempt to assert dominance. The HOA board had now become involved in full force, sending emails and messages that read like legal threats, warning me about potential fines and liability. I didn't respond. I stayed silent, letting the situation unfold like a slow-burning drama. What made it even funnier was that several neighbors had started leaving little gifts and notes outside the garage, flowers, coffee cups, and even a small plush toy with a sign saying, "Garage Prison Warden." One of the board members even tried to mediate by sending Karen over, telling her to exercise patience. But that lasted only a few minutes before she stormed off again, muttering something about how disrespectful people are. I was fishing when I received a video from a neighbor showing Karen attempting to peek through the small garage window, tapping on the glass like a kid trying to get candy. She looked absolutely ridiculous, completely unaware that I was hundreds of miles away, completely untouchable. By day 4, the neighborhood tension had reached almost a legendary status. People stopped by just to watch the spectacle, some taking videos to post online, joking about the great garage siege of the HOA. Karen's ego seemed to grow with every failed attempt, and every message I ignored only fueled her anger. For my end, I spent the days relaxing, fishing, and laughing with my brother, occasionally checking the chat for updates. I even shared a few screenshots of Karen's desperate antics, which Jake claimed were better than Netflix. And as the sun began to set on the 4th day, I realized something important. This wasn't just a petty HOA battle anymore. It had turned into a story that the entire neighborhood, and possibly the internet, would remember. That's when I sent out one final text to the HOA board. "Karen parked in my garage. The car stays there until I return." Silence. Absolute silence. And I smiled. By the fifth day, Karen had officially lost all sense of calm. Reports from neighbors made it sound like a full-blown HOA apocalypse. She had apparently contacted a lawyer, threatened to call the police, and was now sending frantic emails to every board member claiming that I was harassing her and unlawfully detaining her vehicle. One neighbor told me she had even tried posting a video to the community Facebook page, angrily explaining how I had trapped her car against HOA regulations, but it quickly backfired when dozens of people started commenting in my favor, mocking her outrage. Another update showed Karen trying to convince a handyman to force open the garage, only for him to politely decline, saying it was beyond legal scope. Meanwhile, inside my garage, the Lexus sat untouched, perfectly aligned, untouched by her escalating attempts. I could almost picture her, pacing around the driveway, glaring at the garage door, her face turning redder with each passing hour. Meanwhile, I was completely detached, enjoying my trip, fishing with my brother, and laughing at the updates rolling in from my phone. Even the HOA board seemed to be exhausted. One member texted me directly, begging for some kind of resolution before Karen destroyed neighborhood peace. I simply replied, "The car stays until I return." By this point, the story had reached legendary status in the neighborhood. Children were teasing her as she walked past. Neighbors were secretly cheering for me, and the group chat had hundreds of messages about the Great Garage Siege. Even strangers from nearby areas were dropping in just to witness the spectacle. And yet, Karen refused to give up. She was determined to reclaim her so-called rights, escalating from passive-aggressive notes to threats of fines, legal action, and even community complaints. Every attempt failed. Every plan backfired. Every shout and stomp only made her look more ridiculous to the entire neighborhood. By the evening, as I sat by the lake watching the sunset, I realized I had won. Not through force, not through confrontation, but simply by standing firm and letting her ego and impatience do all the work for me. The Lexus had become more than just a car. It had become a symbol of persistence, patience, and poetic justice. And if you think this is where the story ends, trust me, it isn't. Where Karen finally faces the ultimate consequence of her actions, and you won't believe what happens when I return home. So before we continue, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. This is one HOA story you do not want to miss. Hit subscribe now so you're ready for the epic conclusion. The morning of the fifth day finally arrived, and I could already feel the tension building as I packed up my truck and prepared for the drive back home. For 5 days, Karen's Lexus had sat in my garage like a silent monument to her ego, while I had enjoyed peace, quiet, and a much-needed break from the chaos of daily life. The neighborhood had reached peak gossip mode. From what I saw in the group chat, Karen had been panicking non-stop, pacing her driveway, yelling at anyone who dared walk by, and even calling other residents to rally support against me. But the beauty of it all was that most of the neighbors had secretly, or not so secretly, cheered me on. Some even left little good luck notes outside my garage in solidarity, which Karen likely saw but refused to acknowledge. As I drove back into my neighborhood, I noticed a gathering of familiar faces standing on the sidewalk. Neighbors peeking out from behind fences, cameras in hand, some trying to stifle laughter, others just shaking their heads. And there she was, Karen, standing right in front of my garage with her hands on her hips, face red, hair slightly disheveled, and a look of pure disbelief on her face. The moment I rolled up, she tried to bark out something about violating HOA rules and harassment, but her words fell flat in the face of the silent, expectant crowd. I parked my truck calmly and walked toward the garage, unlocking the door in slow motion. The Lexus was there, untouched, gleaming, and completely hers to reclaim. But the look on Karen's face told me everything I needed to know. Her rage had turned to helpless defeat. The neighbors cheered quietly, some even clapping, and I could hear murmurs of admiration for how I had handled the situation without escalating into confrontation. Karen finally got into her car and drove off, probably to file more complaints or to tell the story to anyone who would listen, but the damage to her image was done. Over the next few hours, I received messages from neighbors thanking me for standing my ground and for providing the entertainment of a lifetime. The HOA board quietly dropped all threats, realizing that enforcing their shared garage policy would be impossible after the spectacle. By the end of the day, My Mustang was back in its rightful place in the garage, polished and proud, and the neighborhood had returned to a peaceful normal, though the story of the Lexus trap for 5 days would be retold for months, maybe years. As I settled in, sipping a cold drink and listening to the laughter of neighbors sharing the tale, I realized something important. Sometimes the best way to deal with someone who oversteps boundaries isn't aggression or anger. It's patience, strategy, and letting karma do its work. If you've enjoyed this insane HOA story and want to see more epic neighborhood drama, crazy confrontations, and satisfying paybacks, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on the notification bell and join the community. You don't want to miss what happens next on the channel. Trust me, the HOA stories keep getting wilder every single day.